Okay, lesson 3.3, graph using intercepts. Okay, first of all, you need to understand the term intercept. An intercept is where a line or any part of a graph might cross the x or the y axis. That would be an intercept. Okay, so we're going to find the x-intercept, okay, and this is where the line crosses the x-axis, okay, crosses x-axis, and the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Just want that to be clear, okay? And here's our graph, our equation, our linear equation, 2x plus 7y equals 28. So instead of solving for y, we're going to graph by finding the x and y intercept, okay? So our solution to this would be to find the x-intercept. You're going to substitute 0 for y and solve for x. Now let's kind of think about that. If we have an axis or coordinate plane, and we are looking for the x-intercept, that means it sits on the x-axis. So a point that sits on the x-axis would have an x-coordinate, but it would have a 0 for a y-coordinate because it doesn't go up or down at all. So it would have a 0 for the y-coordinate. This is why we substitute in 0 for our y to find what the x value is when y equals 0. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to substitute 0 in for y into our regular equation. That's why it's red. So we're going to put a 0 in right here and solve for x. So we put in a 0, and we get 2x plus 7 times 0 equals 28. And obviously 7 times 0 is 0. So we end up with 2x equals 28. Does this make sense right here? We end up basically with 2x equals 28. So they divide both sides by 2. So they're showing you divided by 2. And therefore we get x equals 28 divided by 2, or 14. So our x-intercept is going to be 14, 0. Because when y is 0, x is 14, and that's where we would graph it on the x-axis. Okay? That's what it's going to say. Now to find the y-intercept, we do just the opposite. Okay? We are going to put in a 0 for x because the same reason. If we have an axis, a coordinate plane, and we have a point on the y-axis, okay, that means our x value is 0, and then we have a y value. So that would be a point that would lie on the y-axis. It would have an x value of 0 and then whatever y was. So we're going to substitute the 0 in for x and find what y equals when x is 0 to find the y-intercept. So we're going to substitute this time 0 in right here. So you're going to substitute in 0 for the opposite intercept you're looking for. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Substitute 0 in for x and solve for y. So obviously 2 times 0 is 0, leaving us with 7y equals 28. So we're going to end up with y equaling 28 divided by 7, or 4, because we are dividing both sides by 7 to solve for that, get that y by itself, solve for that y. So our y-intercept when 0 is x, or when x equals 0, y equals 4. So when we were going to graph this, we'll talk about graphing in a minute, but that's solving for the x and y-intercept. Okay, that's example 1. Okay, so the x-intercept is 14, the y-intercept is 4. And again, what that means, if you want to put this in your notes, 14, 0 is the first point because we substituted 0 in for y. And the second point would be 0, 4 because we substituted 0 in for x the second time. Okay, so when y equals 0, x was 14, and when x equals 0, y was 4. Okay, all right, moving on. Example 2. Now we're going to use intercepts to graph. So we'll do the same thing. We'll find the x and the y-intercept, and then we will actually use them to graph the line. So we're going to find the intercepts. So to find the x-intercept, we're going to substitute in 0 for y right here. So we're going to find the x-intercept by solving for x. Okay? That's important that you know this and keep this straight. So 2 times 0 is 0, so obviously now we get x equals 4. So our x-intercept will be 4, 0. Okay? Now, I need to probably erase, I think I might need to erase that. We'll see. Yeah, I do. So now we're going to solve for y because we need to find the y-intercept. So y-intercept, solve for y. So we're going to put in a 0 for x, and we end up with 2y equals 4. Divide both sides by 2, and we get y equals 2. So our y-intercept becomes 0, 2. So those are our coordinate points, or our ordered pairs. Ordered pairs. So the x-intercept is 4, so just like I said, 4, 0. So we go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. X-intercept is on the x-axis. The y-intercept is 2. So plot the point 0, 2, because when x was 0, y was 2, and it's the y-intercept on the y-axis, and then draw a line through those points. So that's using the intercepts to graph. Okay? All right, using a graph to find the intercepts. So at what points does this line cross the axes? So here's our graph. You're just going to look and see, and we can tell that the line crosses right there, and the line crosses right there. So it crosses the x-axis at 2, 0. So here's our x-intercept. It's 2. It crosses the y-axis at 0, -1. So our y-intercept would be -1. Obviously, the x-intercept is where it crosses the x. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Okay? That's about it for example 3. Can't make it any easier. So you can stop the video and we will do the guided practice. You can try the guided practice at home. Bring what you can do to class, and we will go over it when we get to class.